Hey, what's up, guys? This is the Tranquil Living Uruguay podcast, and I'm Vanessa, your host. When you move to Uruguay, you quickly realize that your cédula becomes your lifeline for basically everything. It's the single most important document you can have while living in Uruguay. If you're new to Uruguay, your cédula might just seem like a local ID card, but in reality, it becomes connected to almost every part of your daily life. You quickly realize that you need to have your cédula number memorized as soon as you get it. And it's incredibly important to have that memorized once you start living here. So, what is a cédula? It is Uruguay's national identification card. It's used as your primary form of identification inside the country within Uruguay. And if you do travel to Mercosur countries, then you can also go with just your cédula. So it's a little like passport ID card as well for countries that are within the Mercosur agreement. It's issued when you start the residency process here. You get a temporary cédula that says residente en trámite, and it has a 2-year expiration date. Then you get your final cédula once you do become a permanent legal resident, and then it will say residente legal on the back of your cédula. And this one has a 3-year expiration date. When you change from resident in process to legal resident, the cédula number stays the same, thank God, as you'll see why. So the number of the cédula itself, your identification number, it's an 8-digit number that includes decimals and a dash. So for example, if I do an example of numbers 1 through 8, it will be 1.234.567-8. But when people say their cédula numbers out loud here, because you do have to memorize it, they'll say like 1,234,567-8. Some people say -8, like they'll say the dash, and some people don't. I guess it's kind of like preference either way. So, in Spanish, it would be 1,234,567,8. So that's like kind of like an example of when people spew out their numbers. So one thing I did notice as a new Uruguayan resident is our cédula number starts with the number 6. All of the new cédulas being issued right now, or at least we got ours 5 years ago, started with the number 6. So it may be up to 7 million right now. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask around. But basically, people who are my age here in Uruguay, who are millennials that were born and raised here in Uruguay, they got their cédulas as newborns, and they all start with either the number 3 or the number 4, because the numbering system is assigned in sequential order. So if you hear a cédula number beginning like 6 million and on, then they are either an adult here as a new resident or someone new living in Uruguay, or a newborn or like a very young child. So you're integrating and becoming like a local when you can just like immediately and quickly spew out your cédula number at any given moment. You get really quick at doing this, and also like writing it down as well. For example, if like a merchant requires it for, signing your signature, and they say put your cédula number if you're paying with a credit card, for example. And at first, like it feels violating to be asked to say what is basically your Uruguayan social security number out loud in public places. But now it's just kind of like saying your first name, like, hey, I'm Vanessa, kind of thing. So why does me talking about the cédula matter so much for foreigners? Once you have your cédula, daily life just becomes significantly easier. You'll need, like I said, you just need it for literally everything, and it's asked for everywhere. So everyday situations where you would use it is, for example, specifically at the grocery store or a pharmacy, or if you are at a shopping mall and go to a store there, they ask for your cédula number for points to get the puntos. So, for example, if I go to a grocery store, I start loading, like a Devoto, I start loading up the belt with, the things that I'm going to purchase. Right when she starts scanning, they'll ask, Cédula para puntos? Or just simply say, puntos? And then I'll say, okay, say millones, da, 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 and I'll, so they type in my Cédula number and they'll be like, Vanessa, like confirming it's me. And I'm like, yes. And then they go and continue checking you out. And you just like build up and accumulate points. Another example is either picking up or receiving packages. So if you like here, there's a website called Mercado Libre, which is like the Amazon here. And if you receive a Mercado Libre delivery package at your house, the delivery driver will ask for your Cédula number and they'll write it down and type it into their phone or whatever system that they have for package deliveries. Going to medical appointments when you're checking in at doctor's appointments at Amigdalista, for example, and they have the kiosk, you have to go ahead and enter in your Cédula number. Paying bills in general. If you are the account holder and your bill can pretty much be looked up at one of the payment centers here, like Habitab or Repagos, by just your Cédula number. Because if you can't remember your account number, they'll, off the top of your head, they'll just like, oh, like, what's your Cédula number? And they'll type it in, and then boom, your latest electric bill will pop up. Signing contracts, for example, for like purchasing real estate or cars, your Cédula number is used. Banking, signing up for a bank account, school registration for your kids, because your kids also have a Cédula number. And like I said, just utility accounts, phone plans, things like that. So what surprised me most about the Cédula is, like I said, it's basically your social security number that you're just spewing out loud in crowded places from like left to right. And it's like how people's identities are not stolen here, like really boggles my mind to this day, because in the US, you keep your social security number like so close and sacred to you, and you do not, speak it out loud for everyone basically in your like vicinity to hear. So at first, like I would kind of whisper it, but now I just say it out loud and proud like everyone else does. And what's surprising about it when I initially moved here is just like I said, like how often you are asked for it, like basically on a daily basis. And it's interesting because like this, it's interesting to see and experience how like the Uruguayan local systems and way of life really does revolve around, these Cédula ID numbers. It's kind of like fascinating. And if you don't have one, it'll just make your life, like your daily life, difficult. So, like I said, everyone has cédulas, even brand newborn kids. And when I initially went to the Cédula office, when we started our residency process here, I saw a lot of babies like getting their ID cards. And I mean, personally, I think it's like a bit overkill to take, a newborn child to a public government office building for an ID card, but it's just like culturally the norm here. It's just what people do. So, funny story, a local Uruguayan, I think it was one of the parents at my daughter's school, mentioned this. We happened to be talking about cédulas because all the kids in my daughter's class at the time were turning 5. And the initial cédulas that are given to the newborns get renewed like every 5 years. So it was that time when all the families were having to take their kids back to the ID office to get their new cédulas. So they asked if we had gone yet. But because we were foreigners and our cédula timelines are off compared to the general like Uruguayan population, we weren't due to renew just yet. So I was like, no, not yet. We still have like a couple more years. So then I started telling the parents that in general, cédulas for kids were just like new to us because coming from the US, kids don't get ID cards. In the US, your first ID that you actually get is most likely your learner's permit at 15 years old. And then when you turn 16, you get your license. And I mean, besides like needing a passport to travel overseas, there really is no reason in the United States for a minor, let alone a newborn baby, to have an ID card. It just, in the US, it doesn't make sense. And the parents were flabbergasted. She was like, how do people in the US identify your child as yours if there's no ID? Like there's no ID card for that kid connecting that kid to the parents. And I was like, you know what? Like, good question. So I had a little laugh at that. And I was just like, yeah, it's a really good question. Very interesting. So now I appreciate the ID system here for like a variety of reasons. And and it's actually really refreshing to know how like no one here lives in fear of having their identity stolen because someone has my cellular number. So that's nice. And like just in general, like if you are looking to come in Uruguay or if you're new here, after you get your cédula, it just unlocks everything. You do just start feeling more established. It's just like easier integration into the daily systems and it's just convenient because like I said, at the end of the day, your cédula number unlocks like your everyday life here. And get prepared because it's just one more long number that you will have to memorize in your brain for the rest of your life. So, well, anyways, that's all for now. Thank you so much for listening or watching. If you like this episode, please like, follow, or subscribe to the show and channel to support me and share your thoughts or questions in the comments below because I do read them all. And my goal of Tranquil Living Uruguay is to be your passport to Uruguay, a place I call a hidden gem south of the equator. So whether you are visiting, traveling through, or if you are an aspiring or new expat, I'm sharing like real life lived experiences from the perspective of an American Latina millennial expat. So remember, life abroad doesn't have to be perfect, but should be tranquil. Cheers.